Well, originally?
In The Selfish Gene, the sort of message, the main message was that Darwinian natural selection, which as you know is what gives rise to all of us, all living things, works on genes. It's the differential survival of genes, and genes are just an example of coded, digital actually, information. And I wanted to make the point that although the entire book had been based on genes as the basis for natural selection, genes are not the only thing that could have been made the basis of natural selection. On another planet, it could be something quite different. The only thing it has to be is highly accurate information. That probably means digital information, because only digital information is that hi-fi. But then I wanted to say, well, maybe we don't have to even go to other planets to find an alternative to DNA. Maybe there's something already here on this planet which is showing the signs of being a kind of forerunner of a new sort of evolution, memes, cultural replicators, the cultural equivalent of a gene, the cultural equivalent of DNA, which is anything that's copied, anything that's imitated, anything that spreads around like a virus. And I actually used the analogy of a virus as something like a tune that's catchy, like a virus, catching. It spreads around the culture. I whistle it, you hear it, whistle it, you go out in the street, whistle it, somebody else hears it, whistles it. It spreads like a virus, and that's all you need in order to get natural selection going. So I call it a meme. So it doesn't exactly rhyme with gene, but it's sort of short and sounds vaguely similar.
And how did you feel then when it got adapted for the internet age, which is almost its ultimate manifestation of what you're talking about?
Yes, I mean, if I'd known about computer viruses in 1976, I would have used that as an example. The internet is a first-class ecology for memes to spread, and it's no wonder that the word meme has been taken up in the internet, because that's exactly what it is. When we say things are going viral, that's the very phrase I used in The Selfish Gene. So yes, it's not really a change. It's just a specific subset of the original idea of the meme.
So what is a memeplex? In essence, it's an organism, a viral family, a collective of logomatic partnerships. Each meme a block, and when together creates an architecture of memories. This architecture is a living thought form, an egregore. But how will this new organism change the ecology of being? What is happening to the human race? And what are the symptoms to this event? This was a sacred event, hinting its name, the Trinity nuclear test. This occurrence was an active messianic event, an eschatonic act, where an obelisk was resurrected, signaling the opening of one of the 7 seals. Soon after, an earthquake opened the sleeping ancient plasmate near Israel, and upon awakening, the Dead Sea Scrolls emerged.
The craters and mountains of our moon bear the names of giants of science, figures like Archimedes, Kepler, and Copernicus. There is also a crater honoring someone called Jack Parsons. There are some who would rather he had been forgotten. Perhaps that's why his crater is on the dark side of the moon.
He was a maverick rocket scientist, okay? He was also a maverick rocket scientist spiritually.
This father of American rocketry was also an occultist, devoted to a path still widely misunderstood and feared.
So the founding of modern rocket science is absolutely allied and connected with black magic.
Only its detractors would call it black magic. For Parsons, this was his spiritual path, as it is for its initiates today. His scientific legacy continues. So does the puzzle of his death. On June 17, 1952, at 5:08 in the evening, a powerful explosion shook tranquil Pasadena, California, and so ended the life of 38-year-old Jack Parsons.
This thermal event, like the rise of the Kundalini, lit the lantern of the new aeon. It was primed and ignited by Crowley, and Parsons performed the sacrificial act of turning into flame. Parsons' desire was the dream of merging Malkuth, the earth, and the upper world of Kether, symbolized within lighting and impregnating the void of space with a rocket. This ritual was both a signal and a symptom of the unfoldment of the Geist of history. It was history's Gaussian ejection, like the scream of a baby bird escaping the bondage of the shell. And like the bird, so did man begin to break free of the confinements of its own biology through the growing flame of the enlightenment.
The Whore of Babylon is also related to a city or location. This city has had relations with all the rich men of the earth and is a haven for demons.
Statue of Liberty is with a Roman goddess named Libertas, which led to her original name, which is Liberty, enlightening the world.
It is understood that this character or city currently rules the world and uses sorcery to do so. Hecate, also equated with Lilith, is the Greek triple goddess. She is the goddess of the crossroads, who is frequently depicted with 3 heads, one of a dog, one of a snake, and one of a horse. This goddess is often associated with witchcraft and childbirth, and was accompanied by an owl during her travels. She is known as the Virgin Goddess, and is also reported to have a quote-unquote following of ghosts, and lives in the underworld with Hades, Lord of the underworld.
A question tonight, can you actually measure the emotional outpouring in a worldwide crisis?
Sometimes scientists think that they have done just that. Their machines and computers found a bizarre pattern right after several global disasters.
CBS 2's Brendan Keefe explains this phenomenon.
September 11th deeply affected people far beyond New York and Washington. The attack sent shockwaves around the world, a global reaction that triggered a spike in a network of scientific instruments, just like a seismograph during an earthquake.
Each of those showed a similar pattern of change during that day.
Retired Princeton scientist Dr. Roger Nelson believes the emotional focus of millions of people on a single event, like 9/11, may form a global consciousness.
Does consciousness interact directly with the physical world?
To answer that question, Dr. Nelson and his colleagues deployed dozens of instruments around the world, random number generators. Basically, they're electronic coin flippers. Instead of heads or tails, each generates a 1 or a 0 200 times a second. If you flip a coin 100 times, you'd expect a result of about 50-50, 50 heads and 50 tails. But what if every time you flipped that coin, it came up heads? Not once, not twice, not 50 times, but 60, 70, or even 80, all of them heads.
We do that every second at each of, now we have about 65 places around the world.
When truly random, the line of data wanders back and forth around 50-50 in a pattern the researchers call a drunkard's walk.
And then in 9/11, it begins not being a drunkard's walk. It goes like this for 2 days.
It may sound bizarre, but Dr. Nelson and his team have been at this for the better part of a decade. The first spike showed up in 1997 with the death of Princess Diana. Other events like the Concorde crash, the Madrid train bombing, and the Pope's funeral all registered on those random number generators. But early on the morning of September 11th, the data went off the charts.
Several hours before the first plane hit. We don't know how to explain that.
There's nothing there.
Jeff Scargill, a research astrophysicist with NASA, admires the team's use of scientific method, but questions its results.
It's finding patterns in random data. The nature of randomness is that any pattern that you want to choose ahead of time will eventually show up, and just as an accident.
It could happen by chance, but the chance is like 1 in a million or 1 in some really large number.
How does it work, and what does it all mean? Even the scientists don't know. The implications go beyond science into philosophy and religion. All we know is this: at this very moment, around the globe, the random number generators keep flipping those virtual coins, waiting to record our collective reaction to the next major world event. At Princeton, Brendan Keefe, CBS 2 News.